Right, folks, so we're on to Audioline 341 number 2, which currently doesn't have its bezel on because the knobs are being cleaned and the front is being straightened. So, what we got? I really ought to fill another form in. So if you watched the previous one, we had a customer potentially who wants a nice quality set, and so we said, well, do an Audioline 341 and it'll be fully recapped. So the previous one we bought from a radio rally like we did with this one, and neither of those sets worked. So as soon as Mr. Chippie's done the recap, both of the sets have worked. So I've said before, both the 470 microfarad capacitors have failed now. The 220s also need replacing, and we've now identified, as of 2024, that the 22 microfarads, that's one of them, I can't remember where the other is, both the 22 microfarad capacitors have failed. So you can see that a full recap isn't too daft, but not always necessary. But they've all now got to this, now they're 40 years old, have got this problem. And yet, with the Maxon sets and with the Great sets and with the Cybernet sets, we don't seem to have the capacitor problem. So there you are. Just checking the test set behind me is on. So 12th of March 2024, Audioline 341. Whichever one he doesn't buy will end up on eBay. We've also got a Uniden 200 which we'll do not this week but in the not too distant future, because I've got some other customer repairs to get in. We also need to get back on that CB1200, and we also need to get back on with the Howling Maycom EM27. Right, here goes. Let's put picture in picture on. We're on the wrong thing. That's what we want. Transmit power. This is, as this set's come, we've not touched it other than do a recap. So we're on the, are we on low power? It's hard to tell when you've taken all the knobs off. Yeah, we're on low power. So it's doing 3.5 watts on channel 20, which is what you'd expect. Channel 40, it's doing 2.6 watts. And on channel 1, it's doing 3.9 watts. So we'll go back to channel 20. I'm just going to check mic gains up and RF gains up. Yeah, they are now. So power consumption is 837 milliamps, and on low power the set's doing 260 milliwatts. It should of course be 400. Right. We'll start with the VCO. So it needs to be channel 40. The earth to chassis, and it is chassis on these sets. Prove that by Just putting that on the positive power. We've got full rail voltage. So it's is it resistor 74? We've covered this time and time again, so I don't need to go into the greatest of detail. Just swap glasses. Yeah, that's low. Oh, wait, hang on, we're not on transmit. It's 3.65. It needs to be 4. But it's not stupidly out at all. What's nice about both these sets is they're just sets that are 40 years old and they've eventually failed. They're not being messed with. So although the previous one had some attempt with some capacitors, they'd not changed enough of them. There we go, 4 volt. That'll do nicely. Just, so it was 3.6 volts, now 4.02 volts. We'll do deviation because it's actually working on this meter today. Although I'll double check it with the other one. Wallow. Oh, we're on channel 40, of course. Wallow. It shows 2 dead. Let's bring that to 2.2. To 2.5, might peak. Wallow. I'll double check that with the other test set before signing it off. That's a good transmit meter. Meter's not working. They can stick on the bearings, so it just wants some lubrication usually. Check PA. Testing 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. Alright. So we'll see what frequency it's on now. Remember, these aren't adjustable. So what you get is what you get. 27791. Do you know what? It's slightly high, which is incredible considering it's 40 years old. So I can say it will drop down with age. So we're just going to set our signal generator so that's slightly high. So when we set the receiver and read the receiver results, it's true. It's no good having the signal generator on frequency and the radio that tiny bit out. That's really good. Well, let's look at the results right now. So put 1 microvolt on. See what it is straight out of the. Let's put the silent meter on there. So it's not as good as the first one out of the box, shall we say. It's 0.95 microvolts. 0.8 and I can't do 20 at all. Probably the IF's a bit out. Full squelch. I like it to be 100, but there's no hard and fast rule. In fact, it is 1.4 millivolts, far too high. And on the threshold position, let's just go to the attenuator. I've got it in standby at the moment. So we'll set the threshold, switch the radio back on, switch the signal generator back on. Oh, it's totally unacceptable. 5 microvolts. So that is a load of rubbish. Okay, so let's get on to the tune-up. So they're all different even when they're consecutive sets. So there we are on channel 20 doing 3.5 watts. So let's go to the right camera, whip through these, and we can do scratchy corner. Mind you, better put the front back on. So we're looking for the central position of the peak, which looks to be there. What am I doing? This coil, which I've just done, is receive of the VCO. So I'll tell you what, before I forget about it, let's just go back to the VCO and just undo what I've just done. As it happens, I put it back right. Right. Now then, we'll start on transmit. That wasn't quite in its central position. That's now 4.1 watts. Still 4.1 watts, and it's now centralised. I'm just going to see where we are on the other channels as to whether that needs to go up or whether it wants to go down. Channel 40, 4 watts. Channel 1, he's spot on, that's it. So we don't need to touch the final one, which would be the final power adjustment if it needed to come down or even go up. So it's now central across all 40 channels, which is fantastic. Power consumption will have changed though. Go back to channel 20 and it's now 908 milliamps, which is very efficient. Low power, get my tool in there. It's now 450 milliwatts, so we can drop that with the preset. That's not the preset, is it? Yes, it is. That needs cleaning. Right. Deviation we'll recheck on the other test set. Let's just have a look at, I'll go back to full power, what the meter says. Oh, it doesn't, does it? Because it's broken. So we'll come back to that. Right, let's see whether we can get a bit better out of this receive. So we'll start by doing the detector. So with 100 microvolts on the oscilloscope. I thought that was going to be well out with the squelch being rubbish. Right, over to the cyanide meter. Just wind up to about 4 dB so that it's not saturating the radio. We'll start at the front end. Well, that's an improvement. It's nice to see that. Just drop the signal. That didn't want touching at all. That was spot on as well. Slightly adjustment there. Bigger signal for these IFs, intermediate frequency. That was out. See where this squelch is. Oh, hang on, we'll just do the tight squelch first. So I want the set to open. It's at 100 microvolts. Just put the attenuator on so you can see what I'm doing. There we go. 30 microvolts, opens at 100 on full squelch. Now we'll check that squelch. Set the threshold with the signal generator in standby. And put the signal generator back on. No, something's not right. That's why I've paused. Right. It's 2.5 microvolts, which is a lot better than 5 microvolts, but isn't good enough. Right, drop the squelch. Just look at these IFs again. I've gone to a smaller signal. Are we in a false lock here? Yeah, he's in. He's at 1. Wow. Got there. 1. Wow, that took some tuning. And I think we're at 100 microvolts, aren't we? Yep. Good. So that's got that sorted. So it's these two IFs which were just so far out. You just can't imagine at the factory going to that kind of trouble. Right. Let's see what the sensitivity is now. Just put the cyanide meter back on, and it's about where you expect it to be. It's 0.9. So these are never as sensitive as the Cybernet sets. But the filtering's better. 0.76. And now it does 20 for 1.8 microvolts. Good. Right, I'll see whether we can get the meter to play ball. So you have two bearings. What we need is a precision. The trade sounded like shaken, not stirred. That. That's probably too big. Right, I'll pause the video while we just do that. Okay, so I've got the front of this set and I've taken the meter out. I've managed to unjam it and I've put it back together. So on this front, as presented to us, this was peeled up, it's come away, and the escutcheon has peeled upwards. So I've taken it off, kind of peeled it off the gluing, and to be honest, the glue was only holding from about here onwards. And I've put it in the organ workshop and I've straightened it out as best I can. At the end of the day, it's a 40-year-old set, and that's made it presentable. And of course, we've been able to clean it properly whilst it's in bits. Now the fun bit is putting it back on the set. Okay, so back to this. So you've got the on-off volume has a retaining nut. The channel selector has a retaining nut. And then on the back, you've got one screw. And then we've got to reconnect the meter leads to the meter. And then the flying lead, which is now not where I want it to be. That's one of them. And that's the other one. And they present themselves through there and solder to the 2 points there, and there. So I've made sure the holes are clear. No, I can't see a hole there. Right, that's that. And then it's just a matter of it screwing back to the chassis and making sure you don't over tighten the screws. Right, so we need to get the knobs back on. Right, so we need to align the meter. So 100 microvolts on the signal generator. So that should be S9. As you can see, someone has wound it up because the meter wasn't working. That wasn't me. Signal meter is that one. And there's our S9 point. And on transmit, centre of the red zone. And again, that's been wound up. Centre of the red zone. Right, case and knobs. Right, time to put the lids on. What's wrong with me? Why can't I get a... Oh, it's that one. That's negative. Fingers crossed the speaker works. Good. Right, so that's this one put back together as well. So all we need to do is to connect it to an aerial. And then we'll do the on the air test, which will be edited together with the first on the air test for set number 1. We're both doing 4 watts. A fraction less sensitive receive on this one, but within spec. You can get 100 sets, are all going to be different. One niner Roger. 1 niner Roger. 90 now, Roger, with the mic gain up. Now they're all on burners, aren't they? Right, here we go. On the air test time. So that's the second Audioline 341. We will be doing a Uniden 200 in the next few days. And we'll hopefully get on with some other things. Thanks for watching.